Hello and welcome to the Daily Mill for Friday the 14th of May 2021. In today's Millwall news we've got some more details about players and contracts, and this is an exclusive from londonnewsonline.co.uk, which is South London Press's online website, and it says Millwall offer new contracts to Matt Smith and Alex Pearce. Matt Smith and Alex Pearce have been offered new contracts by Millwall, but on reduced terms. The experienced duo are both due to be free agents at the start of June. Striker Smith, who turns 32 next month, scored 19 goals in 77 matches for the Lions. He's been sidelined with a broken foot since the start of March. Centre-back Pearce, 32, has made 20 starts this season, but has left on the bench since the 4-1 home loss to Bournemouth. Millwall have released two long-serving players in midfield, veteran Shaun Williams and winger Shane Ferguson. Backup goalkeeper Frank Fielding is also moving on. We've got quite a lot of change expected this summer, and what I've tried to do is maintain a little bit of balance, said Lions boss Gary Rowett. Matt and Pearcey both offer us good experience, both have offered us really good leadership around the dressing room. You can probably see in that last game, a 6-1 loss at Coventry, that if we get one or two injuries, we haven't got that naturally running through the group. Both are really important off the field and add value on the pitch in certain games, and so if the levels are right, then we'd like to keep both. Target man Smith is likely to have interest from elsewhere. He made just 7 starts in the 35 championship squads he was named in last season. It is a difficult market, said Rowett. The offers we have made might not be acceptable to them and they might choose to move on, but we're trying to see if we can come to an agreement. Every player has the right to see what is out there, especially in those two cases. Their offers are slightly reduced in line with COVID and where we feel the market is. We have to balance off what we want to do in terms of strengthening the squad and what we can do financially. Matt has an obvious impact in certain games, particularly to change them in the latter stages. And Pearcey has that leadership in certain games. I don't think either is in a position where they are going to start every game, and they know that, but there is still value within the group for those two players. They've both had an impact in the season and we don't want to lose them. Rowett says the door is not completely closed on Fielding, pictured above, whose stay in SE16 was badly disrupted by injuries. Frankie has been fantastic around the place, and what I did tell him is that I wouldn't hesitate to go back and offer him a deal if we can't get the keeper we want, explained the then chief. But I felt it was better for both parties to be clear where we were. He's a great trainer and the lads love him. He was really popular in the group. So there you go. That one's a bit weird one. It's like we're trying to get a better keeper than you, mate, but if we can't get one, then we'll sign you anyway. We'll throw you some crumbs. You can come and sit on the bench. And God forbid if Bart get injured, then we have to actually play him, because when he did play, it was absolutely dreadful. And could be the difference between staying up and getting relegated, to be honest with you. But what are you going to do if your first choice goalkeeper gets injured? And also here about Alex Pearce, he looks off the pace. I mean, they're saying like, oh, his leadership ability and his maturity around the squad, but in terms of actually playing, I mean, it's quite clear that he's waning at this level. I mean, he could go to a League One club and play week in, week out, probably do all right. But will the money be there in League One? Probably not. So there we go, and Matt Smith as well. I think the way Rowett was using him as an impact sub, like I mentioned before in previous videos, that Matt Smith, the pace that he doesn't have and his speed ability that he doesn't have, that when you start him in games, he struggles to compete because he's playing against fresh players. But if you bring him on in the 60th minute or in the 75th minute, then it's kind of parity, he's kind of equal, because he's fresh, even though he's fresh is quite slow and not that quick. But the players have been playing 60 minutes, 75 minutes of a pretty intense game, So he can go full whack for 15-20 minutes against players who are a bit tired. And even though we had 5 subs this per game this past season, and I don't know if that's going to carry on next season, but you often don't get centre backs substituted, which is, when you think about it, is kind of weird. Because if the opposition brings on strikers with fresh legs, and you're not gonna even consider changing out the centre back for someone to bring on a fresh centre back who can compete with that, or maybe take off one of the forwards and bring on like a defensive midfielder player who can man mark that fresh striker. But teams don't do it. They don't sub the centre defenders. But yeah, so Smith probably being offered a smaller contract to reflect that he's now like some kind of super sub role. I don't. It's kind of a bit of a status slap, and it's up if your ego cannot take it. Like, in terms of ability, you're getting on. Like you're nearing the end of your career. You're getting old. You're probably not going to be a professional footballer for any longer. And it's if your ego can take that as that happens, you gradually step down in terms of leagues or wages, because you're not at your peak anymore. So you have to accept that the peak is gone, and you're gonna get less money. You're gonna go down to lesser leagues, and you have to accept that fact. And if you can't, so it depends. So they've been made less. They've been made contracts that are less money than they're on now. So can their egos accept that, or will they be like, oh no, I want the same? And now I would imagine they'll try and get the same elsewhere, because if they don't, then they have to accept that their status has been reduced, even though it's been reduced by time anyway, as they've aged and got older, and their bodies have been kind of older and tested by the rigors of the game. They would much rather, I assume, preserve their status at the level it's at now than stay in the group that they're in and be on less money. And now it's out in public. Well, I imagine the players around the squad will know. They would expect that the offers have been made are of less money, but now it's out here in public. Like, it's quoted from Rowett that he's offered them less money to see if they're going to stay, because they want to use the money to strengthen the squad. So will they accept that and accept that their status has been lowered and everyone else knows it? That's up to them and their egos. Talking about a player who's getting on a bit and who left is Shaun Williams, and also this is from londonnewsonline.co.uk. They've actually got quotes from Shaun Williams. So it says Shaun Williams promises to return to the Den as a Millwall fan and admits emotion got to him after final appearance for South London club. Shaun Williams has admitted he struggled to keep his emotions in check after he made his final appearance in a Millwall shirt. The 34-year-old Republic of Ireland international is leaving the Den this summer and played his 295th game for the Lions in Saturday's 6-1 loss at Coventry City that wrapped up the 21 campaign. Dublin-born Williams had previously stated his desire to end his playing days with the South Londoners, but the final chapter in an impressive career will take place away from SC16. It was going to come to an end eventually, but it's hard to leave, he said. It's not an ideal world. I'd have been happy to retire here if it had maybe been one more year, but that's not my decision. Saturday and Sunday were quite emotional days. I was fine until I was walking off the pitch, and then it just hit me. It wasn't nice viewing. I would imagine in the dressing room afterwards. I didn't even cry at my wedding. I didn't think I'd get like that, but emotion got the better of me. Geez, I've got nothing but good words to say about my time here. I've met some unbelievable people who will be friends for life. Not just players, but staff members as well. When I first came, I never imagined I would be here that long. I've had my 2 kids while I've been here, so all they know is Millwall. Williams was 27 when he made the switch from MK Dons to the Den in January 2014. The Buckinghamshire club opted to cash in before his contract expired at the end of that season. Ian Holloway was in charge of the Lions at that time. He sold it to me, recalled Williams. I had the choice of Brighton or Millwall, and the conversation I had with him alone was enough to make me want to come and play for him in the club. He made me feel 10 feet tall, more so than the other options I had. It was also the lore and history of the club and the fan base about how passionate and hard-working everyone is. That just swung it into their favour for me to come. Originally, I signed a 2.5-year deal with the option of another year. To continue on for 7.5 years was unbelievable. I don't think many people do that nowadays. Williams' title had shifted to player coach in August, and he's doing his UEFA A licence course. I still feel as fit as ever, and you're a long time retired, said Williams. I couldn't put a time frame on how long I will play for. As long as I feel alright, then I'll play. I'll play for the love of the game. I'll take it as it comes now. I've had a bit of interest so far, but it's a bit early to decide what to do. I'll weigh up the options, whatever is best for me and my family, and we'll take it from there. I won't rule anything out. The COVID-19 pandemic has prevented Williams from getting the send-off he deserves from Millwall supporters. Asked if he would come back next season for them to pay his respects for his lengthy service, he replied, "If that was put on, it would be lovely. I'll definitely come back to watch the games anyway because I've grown that fond of the club that I'll be classed as a supporter." Williams has his shirt and winners medals from the 2017 League One playoff final framed on a wall in his house. He picks Neil Harris as the best boss he worked under at Millwall. Is that a bit of a parting shot at Gary Rowett? I don't want to disrespect anyone, but he was the one who probably got the most out of me, said Williams. We had an unbelievable success, and I played 200 games for him. He got us back to being a hard-to-beat team, a winning team that was hungry. We all had that same drive for promotion. Unfortunately, we didn't get it that first season, but luckily enough, we did in the second. The playoff was an unbelievable experience to do it in front of such a big crowd, and the way we did it as well. We got in the playoffs on the last day with Shaun Williams' header at Bristol Rovers when we won 4-3 to get in the playoffs. I knew we weren't going to get beaten. The winner was late in the game. It was quite iconic that Morrow was the one who scored the goal. I've still got the programme, and my little lad gets it out every now and then. I still have the boots. I only wore them in the playoffs. They were in the garage. I got new boots for the semis and the final. After the final was over, they were so tight on my feet that I said I'll never wear these again. There is still a bit of Wembley muck on them. The FA Cup runs that we had were nice distraction, really good as well. There have been more highs than lows for Williams with the Lions. One setback was being sent off at Coventry in April 2016 and losing his starting berth for the playoffs, only coming as a substitute in the final. That's a moment I definitely regret, said Williams. And also the game on Saturday. I never imagined going out after such a heavy defeat. That was a bit of a dampener. His bond and success with Millwall makes you wonder if Williams will be back once he does hang up his boots. I would love to, he replied. I was involved on the coaching side this season and really enjoyed seeing the young lads, trying to help them improve a little bit and pass on my experience to them. I'm doing my badges. Hopefully I'll have that opportunity in future. So there you go. Decent words from Shaun Williams there. Decent Millwall player. Played his part in our recent success, and definitely under the Harris era, which he mentions. He rates Harris as the best manager he's played for at Millwall. So there you go. So let's talk about another Millwall manager, the current one, Gary Rowett. And this is also from londonnewsonline.co.uk. A triple hat-trick today for them. They're smashing it out the park. Gary Rowett, Millwall are following the 3-year plan I mapped out. Gary Rowett reckons that Millwall are on course for the 3-year plan when he took charge at the Den. The Lions made it back-to-back top half championship finishes despite a disappointing 6-1 loss at Coventry to wrap up their 21 campaign. We were 8th last year, but we won 3 of the last 4. If we'd done the same this season, we would have finished 8th or 9th. Yes, and if my auntie had a dick, she'd be my uncle. Both seasons were pretty similar in different ways. When I came in, I had a 3-year plan. The first year was to build a solid championship team that wasn't flirting with relegation. The second season was to build a top 10 team that maybe flirted with the top 6. That was this season. And the third season was to try and break into the top 6. So the reason why he didn't play any youngsters at the end of the season, and he played this dopey the dopey defence that he played of George Evans and Marlon Romeo, which did all right against Bristol City because Bristol City were lazy and have given up and don't care, and they're the worst team in the league right now. I think they're going to get relegated next season. But he got absolutely smashed against Coventry. He didn't play Hayden Muller, didn't give him a start, didn't give him a game, gave him like 5 minutes at the end. Is because he had this arbitrary target in his head of finishing the top 10. And it still didn't happen. He finished 11th. So what was the point of that? In some ways, we are exactly on track with that. This season was made far more difficult, not just for us because there were no fans. There were things we couldn't do because of COVID. It is hard to judge goals because if you look at Watford, they finished second and only scored in the early 60s, which has never happened before. Everyone's goals were probably 15 down on normal. It's been a positive season. It's always hard to finish 8th and then 11th and see it like that. People want to see linear progression, but it doesn't work like that for clubs like ours. Injuries also dictated where you finish. It is up to us to make sure that next season we've got a little bit more depth in the squad and a little bit more room for manoeuvre. If we get injuries, we played some good football at times and defended very well at times. We're never going to be a possession side. I don't think that suits us or suits our fans. If the fans are back and we're making 50 passes around the back, not going anywhere, I'm sure they'll let us know their thoughts on that. That defensive and aggression side is something we want to improve on next season. We want to have a little bit more of an attacking threat in different ways. And if you see, I think it was yesterday's video I mentioned, there's a league table of discipline, and we're at the bottom of it in terms of we're like a soft touch now. We haven't fouled anyone. We haven't got a lot of yellow cards, and we had hardly any red cards. We only had Mario Wallace sent off, which is compared to the rest of the league, we're like 20th in the league in terms of like the dirtiest clubs, which is insane to me. Like when you go from Kevin Muscat, Alan Dunn, players are getting yellow card, red card, and we're just like powder puff now. We're not getting booked or anything. You see here it says aggression side. We know that we need that, and I'm sure we'd have done that this year if we had more impact from the loan players, but again, injuries took their toll. We never really got to see the impact they might have had. Championship table based on expected goals, and Millwall finishing 15th. It measures the quality of a chance based on several variables. Yeah, stats, you can see that on Experimental 361. If you look at my stats videos and go to that website, you'll see there's a table based on expected goals, chances you have against the opposition, and chances you let the opposition have against you. And we actually finished 15th in that, which means that our defence is worth 4 places in the league. It's basically our defending's pushed us up 4 places in the league. So that's something to think about. I look at things like that and I have an overall overview, but I never let data dictate where the team goes, said Rowett. I don't think data can ever truly predict the character of the players, the character of a team, or the drive of the team. It's not something I worry about too much. When I was at Derby, we had Matic Vidra, and he was top scorer in the division, and his XG was quite low. He's very clinical. Rowett is expecting all of his injured players to be back for the start of the 21-22 season. Ryan Leonard might be a week or two behind and be back in the middle of pre-season. He said maybe in the last 5 or 6 games there are a few games we're not having Hutch and Mazza clearly hindered us. So we need to get those players back. So he's talking about Vidra there and low XG, but getting a lot of goals, and that's a Premiership quality player. So that's like, if you have that, that's a Premiership quality player. You can I don't know, that's not how XG works, I don't think. But you can see here, so Gary Rowett, you can see why he didn't play any of the youngsters, especially Hayden Muller. Tyler Burry, he's kind of flat to deceive. I don't know what he really is. Is he a winger? Is he a forward? I don't know what he really is. And in that last game, he played him up front, and that didn't really work. But to not have Aidan Muller start a game and instead play Marlon Romeo as a centre back, and we find out now that it's because he was chasing a top 10 finish, because he set this target 2 years ago that in the second season they would finish in the top 10, and it didn't work out anyway because you didn't listen to because you're listening to something from 2 years ago and you're not seeing the things that are right in front of you now. Like, we were going to finish in the top half anyway. Like, we couldn't have finished lower after, I think, Luton and Rotherham drew. So we only could have gone up with a win at Coventry. Going into that last game, we weren't going to drop down, so we were going to finish 11th anyway. But if we would have won that game, we could have gone up to 9th, I believe, depending on other results, the QPR result. But because he set this arbitrary target 2 years ago, he didn't play Hayden Muller. Instead, played this ramshackle defence. They got absolutely smashed because he did alright against Bristol City, who were just dog shit. But now, so he's done that. But now he's set himself up for failure next season as well. Because if he doesn't break into the top 6 next season, he's just set himself up for failure. He's considered a failure. And it seems like he's going to try and be even more ruthless. And he's not going to be setting out a natural team. You know, he's I don't know how to explain it. He's going to ruthlessly go after getting into the top 6 to the detriment of the benefit of the players and the squad in the moment. So he's going to, instead of taking it naturally, seeing how the players are, how they do, maybe this player, he's a good player, but he's not playing well at the moment. But he's going to say, oh, he's a decent player, like Ryan Woods. He never dropped Ryan Woods even when he wasn't doing that well. But there were probably times when you should have dropped him. Put Ryan Leonard in there. Ryan Leonard was out of the team for a while. It's like, what are you doing, mate? It's like, one player's playing well, one player isn't. Why are you not playing them to their strengths in the moment? Why are you playing them based on their past abilities and the levels they've set? So we'll see. But I think it's going to be even more ruthless and strict and not go with the flow next season, because you've set this target 3 years ago, is going to be now, to get into the top 6. And if we don't get a striker, that's not going to happen. If we don't get a striker who can score, it's not going to happen. If we don't sort the way we play out, it's not going to happen anyway. So there you go. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.